So we'll be live in a few seconds, and maybe Professor Narwal can start with your formal say.
Start recording, I think so.
Yeah, we are live on Facebook.
Yes, it is being shown.
Yes, sir. You can start.
And recording?
That will be on Facebook itself. Ho jayega.
Okay.
Started, yes.
At the outset, I extend my warm greetings to you all in this webinar, Building Self-Reliant India, Vision for the Youth, organized by Department of Commerce, Kurukshetra University, in association with HCMA, PCMA, HPCMA. Most respected invited speaker, Jagdish Sheth, Emory University, USA, Professor Manjula Chaudhary, Dean Academic Affairs, Kurukshetra University, Professor Narendra Singh, Dean, Faculty of Commerce, Management and Tourism, Professor Tejinder Sharma, Chairman, Department of Commerce, my esteemed colleague in the department, Professor Neelam Danda, Professor Ajay Suneja, Professor Subhash Chand, Dr. Rasmi Chaudhary, Dr. Jayanth Shah, CA, Executive Director of Academy of Indian Marketing, Professor Asmi Bhalla, President, PCMA, Dr. Sanjeev Kumar, Secretary, HCMA, and Office Bearer of HPCMA, and dear participants. Indeed, it's a matter of great pleasure and pride for me to share with you that Department of Commerce, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra is going to start a webinar series from today. This initiative is the brainchild of our chairman, Professor Tejinder Sharma. And we worked for days to materialize it. Actually, when we were working on it, a thought came in our minds, why not to commence this webinar series with the address of a well-known personality, and that great and well-known personality is with us, Professor Jagdish Sheth. Nowadays, self-reliant Atmanirbhar Bharat has become the buzzword in India. The world at present facing COVID-19 pandemic, suffering a lot and physically, but this pandemic has also offered us the opportunities. This self-reliant is the outcome of this pandemic. Worldwide, the countries want to become self-reliant and taking number of initiatives in this direction. Even USA is also talking about self-reliant in many areas, including medicine. Number of webinars have been organized, are being organized, and will be organized on self-reliant India theme. But listening to speaker like Professor Jagdish Sheth is rare. Today, we are lucky enough to have Professor Jagdish Sheth, who will enlighten us with his thought very shortly. Now, I would like to invite Professor Tejinder, Chairman, Department of Commerce, for welcome address. Actually, Professor Tejinder was very enthusiastic about this webinar series. He's very energetic, always believe in doing things in different way. Not taking too much time, now I invite Professor Tejinder to deliver welcome address. Over to Tejinder.
Thank you, Professor Mahavir. It's my proud privilege that I extend my warm welcome to everyone in this seminar. I invite Professor Manjula Chaudhary, Dean Academic Affairs of Kurukshetra University, chairing our session today. I also extend my invitation to Professor Narendra Singh, Dean Kurukshetra, Faculty of Commerce and Management, Kurukshetra University. And it is our extreme proud privilege that we have amongst us a person about whom we had read about whom we have been reading, and who has really been our guru through the books. Sir, you were the one who taught us consumer behavior. I still remember Howard and Sheth consumer behavior model. And sir, I was reading your biodata. Of course, yes, I mean, it's a proud privilege to read that biodata, but for the participants and for the students, particularly for the researchers who are right now live on this session, best way to introduce is Professor Jagdish Sheth, the one who gave the model of consumer behavior. Sir, everybody knows you still with that very model. Professor Jagdish Sheth is the Charles H. Kelstad Professor of Business in Gojwala Business School at Emory University. He is globally known for his scholarly contributions in consumer behavior, relationship marketing, competitive strategy, and geopolitical analysis. Professor Sheth has over 50 years of combined experience in teaching and research at University of Southern California, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Columbia University, MIT University, and Emory University. We are extremely overwhelmed to have you amongst us, sir, today. Professor Sheth is the recipient of top awards given by American Marketing Association. It is Richard D. Irwin Award, Distinguished Marketing Educator Award, the Charles College Parlin Award for Marketing Research, and P.D. Covers Award for Outstanding Contributions in the Theory of Marketing, and the William Welke Award for Marketing a Better Society. Professor Sheth is a Fellow of Association of Consumer Research, Fellow of American Psychological Association, Fellow of American Marketing Association, Distinguished Fellow of Academy of Marketing Science, and a Distinguished Fellow of International Consortium, International Engineering Consortium. Professor Sheth is the recipient of honorary degree in Doctorates of Science awarded by the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign 2016, and honorary Doctor of Philosophy awarded by Shiv Nadar University, Noida. Professor Sheth has authored or co-authored more than 300 papers in several books, including Clients for Life, and the most well-known is The Theory of Consumer Behavior, about which we all have heard about. Sir, we are extremely overwhelmed to have you amongst us today, and it is our extreme proud privilege, and I'm so happy to invite you virtually to our webinar today. Sir, webinar series was a way to give the new ideas to the young boys and girls who are studying in our campus, give the ideas to the young researchers who are studying in our campus. And at a time when the whole nation is gearing itself, is thinking itself, and is developing this, garnering the self-confidence to become self-reliant, we thought of requesting you to kindly come and give your views on building self-reliant India and the lessons for the youth. Because India is a Youngistan, India comprises of young boys and girls, they have their dreams and they have the capacity to make their dreams come true as well. And so your address will infuse them new vigor and new ideas. We also have the privilege to have amongst us Dr. Jayanth Shah. Dr. Jayanth Shah is a chartered accountant and an associate member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India since 1982. A graduate in commerce and law, Jayanth Shah has varied experience in organizational and management consultancy and is currently associated with the eminent management guru, Dr. Jagdish Sheth. Jayanth Shah has been associated with the Academy of Indian Marketing since inception, and presently he is the Executive Director of Association of Indian Marketing. He is also instrumental in formation of Academy of Indian Marketing, which is a non-profit organization having top 40 business schools in its gambit. Its members are active in promoting research in the area of marketing. Sir, we share this common interest as we also have formulated Haryana Commerce and Management Association, and we also share with you the drive for excellence in the research and teaching in this country, because unless and until we invest in knowledge, I think so we will not be able to go ahead. Mr. Shah is a member of Board of Governors of IILM University, Gurgaon, and is an advisor of a couple of educational institutions and startup companies. He is also a member of the editorial board of Journal of Creating Value. His passion to mentor young students, entrepreneurs, and professionals in the area of personal and professional development. Sir, it is your drive that you networked us to the celebrated professor, and I am extremely thankful. I am extremely overwhelmed to extend my warm invitations to both of you, sir. In addition to this, it's a great privilege to have amongst us Professor Ashwini Bhalla, who is the president of Punjab Commerce and Management Association. And also I have the profound privilege of extending the invitation to my wonderful student. He still says he's my student. Of course, he's a guru himself now, a big guru now, Dr. Sanjeev Kumar. And of course, my wonderful esteemed colleagues who all have really helped us to work together so as to make this webinar come true, sir. I welcome you once again to this event, sir.
Thank you. So it's my turn to speak now. Am I start? Do I start?
No, sir, 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
Yeah,
Sir.
that's what I'm.
Thanks, Professor Tejinder. Now, to introduce the theme of the webinar, we have with us Professor Narendra Singh, Dean, Faculty of Commerce, Management and Tourism. Professor Narendra Singh has already served the department as chairman. He is also Dean of Exams, apart from members of various committees in the university. Now, I call upon Professor Narendra Singh to introduce the theme of the webinar to the participant. Over to Professor Narendra Singh.
Thank you, Dr. Mahavir. A very good evening. Happy Janmashtami. Kurukshetra is a birthplace of ultimate wisdom given by Lord Krishna, whose birthday is being celebrated today. So it's our privilege to begin this on this auspicious day. Honorable Chairperson of this webinar, Professor Manjula, Dean Academic Affairs of the Kurukshetra University. Our most revered and distinguished speaker, Professor Jagdish Sheth, Emory University. Distinguished guest, Dr. Jayanth Shah, President, Academy of Indian Marketing. Professor Ashwani Bhalla, President, Punjab Commerce and Management Association. My esteemed colleagues, Professor Neelam, Professor Suneja, Professor Tejinder, Professor Mahavir, Professor Subhash, Dr. Rashmi, Dr. Sanjeev Sharma, Director DAV Institute, Dr. Pooja Malhotra, and all the distinguished participants, scholars, and students. We all are connected here for this webinar on the theme, Building Self-Reliant India, Vision for the Youth, or Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Now, it was announced by our PM, Worthy PM, on May 12th on the declaration of economic package of 20 lakh crore, that is 10% of our GDP. On 2nd June, while addressing Confederation of Indian Industries annual conference of that, PM propagated to think big and conduct detailed study of every sector to the Confederation of Indian Industry. So what he suggested is that firstly, because of COVID, firstly, we have to stabilize the economy and then speed up that. And private sector is partner in progress. To achieve self-reliant India, he suggested 5 things which are necessary. 5 I's. That is intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, and innovation. So intent is its imagination. It is like when we when we have a vision of developing India as a developed nation. So that is an intention. If we have that dream, like dream of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, so that is an intention, and substantially we feel that it has substantially achieved. So dreams have to, intense is also in the dreams of the people, so that do not allow us to sleep. Dream is not that what when we have dream in the sleep, but dream do not, as Professor Dr. Abdul Kalam, so that is what the dream is, that do not allow us to sleep. Inclusion is that in the process of economic growth, it should be participation of everyone, from daily wager to farmer to woman to youth to everyone, to all sector of the economy, small, medium, all, and then investment. So we need investment for creating environment. So creating, we have to create environment to attract investment. As recently, we see gold prices are rising. The reason is because of uncertainty of return on investment. So investment is not attracted towards the manufacturing or in any other area. So the investments is diverting towards the gold. So financial institution, they like recently, we have seen inflow of investment in the Reliance Jio because of certainty of return from the foreign investors. So all top companies of the world, so they have invested into that company. So we require that investment for self-reliant India. Infrastructure, that is the fourth I, for making efficient and effective supply chain, which is must. And then innovation. So India is a diverse country. So it's a source of knowledge in terms of culture, in terms of food, music, living system, family. We have a different kind of variety of all these, clothing, and with technology, it can be marketed across the world. Then self-reliance does not mean cutting off from the rest of the world or isolation. It is to make India bigger and important part of global economy, where FDI technology that is being attracted. Our biggest advantage is the demography. As on date, in terms of population, we have 135 crore people. US, which is one of the biggest economy, constitute almost 1/4 of the world GDP. So that has 1/4 of India population. So in case if we have inclusive growth, so we are 4 times of US and 50 times of Australia in terms of population, provided we have enabled them to participate in the mainstream of the economy. Then we have another big advantage in terms of fun and fauna, sunshine, weather, rich heritage. So all these are the advantage of the India. Our challenges are, it is the cost, quality and productivity. Because presently we feel our distribution cost is high, financial cost is high, power cost is high, our governance cost is very high, labor cost is high. We need to have quality improvement in terms of, we have to benchmark with the best of the world, best of the quality of the world. We have to improve the productivity, and it requires constant improvement, because we cannot make self-reliance India without achieving cost competitiveness, without achieving good, best of the quality, without having best of the productivity level. Then what is the vision for the use? As on date, the situation is very fluid. The world is constantly changing. Earlier it was centric. Then since 1995 when WTO was formed, then gradually it got integrated in terms of like European Union was formed, SAFTA, NAFTA, ASEAN, SAARC, etc. But again, recently, because of recession in the US, then that has impact on all across the globe. Then protectionist tendency are emerging recently, and COVID has accelerated that. It is creating, again, it's a problem, but it is creating new opportunities. So every problem creates new opportunity. So young minds with positive outlook can easily tap them with the available technology. There is no dearth of resources, but appropriate networking with the right people and institution is required. Encouraging and positive so not much time. Thank you very much. And I hand over this to next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for introducing the theme to the participant. Now, waiting time to listen the invited speaker is over. I know all of you are anxiously waiting for Professor Jagdish Sheth. Already we have got number of compliments from the participants to have Professor Jagdish Sheth as invited speaker. I know that he doesn't need any kind of introduction as having name and fame all over the world. As Professor Tejinder has already highlighted the one thing, that is consumer behavior model given by John Howard and Sheth. I believe that you will take away a lot from his address. Now, I invite Professor Jagdish Sheth for his address. Over to Professor Jagdish Sheth.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm quite excited, and I came to know more about your background, which is great. If we cannot show the slides yet, and let me just talk, so I'm on full screen in the beginning, that'll be better. I'll take about 5 minutes to talk about the setting it up, and then we'll go into formal presentation.
It's okay, sir.
Let me start by showing why nations aspire or need to do self-reliance. Self-reliance is a concept which is built into 3 circumstances. The most obvious circumstance is when survival of a nation is at stake. At that time, the nation is deciding it'll have to control its own destiny. And it can happen when there's a military invasion, which has happened worldwide many, many times. All of Europe has been fighting with each other, leading to World War II, World War I, etc., Cold War. So the survival is a very key instinct. Second one is economic survival. Somehow the nation is not able to generate growth, prosperity in the process, is not having the economic spark for employment, savings, as well as in fact for taxes to serve the public in terms of infrastructure, poverty reduction, whatever the agenda the government has. And a third reason, obviously, is the most recent one, which is you have a major global health threat, and there's no solution, and some countries have access to the, let's say, personal protection equipment, others don't, and that creates a problem. So given these kinds of situations, survival is clearly one dimension on which people say, I need to take charge of my own destiny. It's true of many nations right now worldwide. We can see the examples. What is happening in Belarus, for example, right now, what is happening, in fact, in Lebanon, for example. There are all kinds of situations we can relate to where the survival and the existence of the state itself is in question. Second one is much more interesting, where there's a tremendous amount of natural resources, agricultural resources, industrial resources, human resources, people who somehow not able to leverage and create value add on those resources. So you end up selling or exporting or whatever you do, those resources are no value add on the resources. So some other nation buys your resources and creates the value add. In that case, for example, many agricultural commodities or industrial commodities, we export quite a lot. Very true in Africa, very true in Latin America, because they do not have this self-reliant theory or a process in place or an investment necessary. So value add is another key area where a nation says, I will do the value add and sell more finished value added products, because in agriculture that may increase the value by 3 to 5 times easily. Industrial raw materials may be 15 to 20 times, and human capital, of course, is infinite. The third reason is aspiration. I want to do something more than what I have achieved. And we may have a great past and a heritage, but the belief is that there's still more potential, and can we excite the people to take charge of their own destiny, which is what self-reliance is all about. And if the people are ready, the people mindset is that we can achieve it, which fortunately is happening more with India, and I would attribute to the 1991 economic reforms and how much India has done in terms of all kinds of innovative stuff, which says that it's possible for India to aspire to become a self-reliant nation. So that aspiration or the dream to do something is very important. That is true what happened in America 150 years ago. There was a belief that America can do better than any European nation from which the heritage came. It has happened in China recently. We can decide our own fate. It is happening among several other countries. Some of the smaller ones are saying we need to decide our own destiny. Singapore may be in that category, etc. So there are a bunch of reasons why I think the aspiration is one more. In the case of India, they have gone through all three. In other words, for us, all three reasons are really essential to become self-reliant. So now I will go into formal presentation. If you can put my slides up, please. So the title is Building Self-Reliant India, Vision for the Youth. And I'll come to the youth part at the end, and maybe I can preface right now. If you look at the worldwide political protest, people being unhappy, wanting to remove the existing governments, it is all because they have the potential, but the policymakers or the private sector industry or other institutions are not able to unlock their potential. The mission of a nation is very simple, is to unlock the potential of its own resources. So the focus will be on the youth at the end of the presentation, and I'll go through the background first. So we go to the next slide, please. Why good nations fail. All nations have a rise and a fall. Some of the biggest empires, if you look at the history, have fallen. They have not sustained. Roman Empire comes out as an example. Obviously, Ottoman Empire comes out as an example. There was Spanish Empire at one time, for example. British Empire was the best known, and it plateaued in late 1800, 1890, it began to plateau. And by just about the World War I, 1914-18, it began to subside, and there was a rise of America, for example. America also now, there's a huge worry whether America is at point of stagnation and plateauing. Has it really got the meaning about what it wants to do, or is it going through a midlife crisis? And there are scholars who have written the books about rise and fall of nations. So basically, it turns out to be a very simple theory, like all institutions. Even the greatest nations of the world fail when they are either unable, that's clearly one point, they're unable for whatever reason, usually some historical legacies, or more importantly, unwilling to adjust or adapt to the changing external ecosystem in which they operate. The nations cannot be totally insulated, isolated, so its factors are only internal, but it has to get integrated worldwide in the ecosystem. So interdependence between the external factors and the internal governance are very important. So I wrote a book called Why Good Companies Fail. The title is The Self-Destructive Habits of Good Companies, and it's sold. It's in 14 languages, struck a chord. 2008 or so, I published that one. We are reprinting now in India, for example. Like all institutions, that's the same thing. Institutions go through that whole issue about willingness to change and ability to change. And India has to basically decide, it seems to have the ability to change. Does it have the willpower to change? So I have a typical 2x2 matrix. A self-reliant nation is the one who has both the willingness to change and ability to change, or what we are calling in India, the new India now, essentially, rather than the legacy or heritage India in some fashion. A nation that is not willing to change, but has all the potential to change, is a complacent nation. Often we have said that success leads to failure, breeds failure. And quite often they become complacent. They're just happy of what is happening. And therefore the next generation does not think how to increase the value of the nation or how to sort of escalate the growth, prosperity, culture, whatever we decide as the mission of the nation. On the other hand, you may have a willingness to change, but inability to change, which is what I call a captive nation. Captive nation is the one which says, I'm locked into processes, structures, resource constraints, whatever it is, even though I have the desire to change and be more relevant, I cannot do it. And of course, I've labeled lower left corner dinosaur nation, which says it is neither the willing nor the ability. And like the dinosaurs, it's a species that may be extinct as a matter of time. In fact, we have history about empires which have come and gone because they became dinosaurs. They were not able to relate to the new reality. So let's go to the next page, please. So here are the externalities which are changing in front of our eyes. And these are very dramatic compared to similar externalities which led to World War II, Cold War, or even in fact, World War I, which are more recent memories. First of all is the emergence of China as a superpower. Nobody had imagined 30 years ago that China will become such a major economic power and more recently, actually military power. It is definitely rivaling America, which is creating uneasiness worldwide, especially in recent times when China has shown its ambition to expand militarily to protect its interest worldwide. They've invested heavily in this, what is called BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, as an infrastructure project to access resources from Africa primarily, and actually to access markets in Europe, for example. So it is both an economic play, but also a military play, as well as a defense play. Populism everywhere, political unrest. What happened yesterday in Belarus, you can see. What's happening in Lebanon right now. Constant political unrest where small group of people are so fed up with the government, totally unknown people become political leaders without a party even, and sometimes they have to organize the party on the way of winning the election. There seems to be a movement to say existing governments are just not helpful to us. Can we get rid of them somehow? And once you have a sort of a political unrest that rises to a national level, there's nothing governments can do. Military cannot stop that, which is very interesting. We can fight normal battles, but we cannot fight street battles. Unfortunately, social media would have been a great invention. We can reach the world very quickly, but it is also used negatively. Social media have become very acrimonious, especially when the political leaders are using social media to directly communicate to their base or their followers or supporters. But it has become a lot more, I would say, unprofessional in many ways. You see comments made by leaders of the nation, which seem like should not come from people with authority, people with power, people with respect, etc. Social media acrimony is a very key factor as a new reality in the world. Rapid technological breakthroughs. So no matter how good you are now going to be displaced by something else much faster, sooner, etc. And we have seen that in the digital world, the technological growth or breakthroughs are much faster compared to the mechanical world or chemical world before. And it's going to happen with the biogenetics now, in the case of the DNA architecture, etc., in the healthcare field also. So rapid technological breakthroughs is massive, which means even though you may be doing well, you are left behind because something else is happening and other nation takes advantage of that. World has pivoted to Asia, both economically, clearly, with 2 large populations. And if you take the purchasing power parity base, surprisingly, the number 1 in that base economy is China, about $30 trillion. Number 2 is US, about $20 trillion. Number 3 is India at about 11 trillion, the latest data from IMF. And then you have a huge drop by Japan, about 5 trillion, etc., etc. So these are the 3 nations who are creating the economic potential and the power. And of course, everybody is pivoting toward that. But it is also pivoting in terms of military. You see the alignment of Australia, Japan, India, and America to protect the maritime routes in the Asia side, of course, the South China Sea, but more importantly, the Arabian Ocean, the Indian Ocean, etc., in front of our eyes. That's a major event taking place. There's a lot of worry that if there is any major war, it is more likely to be in Asia now, not in Europe, because United States of Europe, which is European Union, is pacified by unionizing itself, not in Latin America, not even in the Middle East, which is a hotbed, but it can be contained one in Asia would be more massive. If it happens, how can we therefore prevent that? Is a major theory of peace is arising. That's a major concern in the world. Growing wealth disparity. I'm very worried about this one. I done a lot of research in this area, and I find certainly that the personal wealth now has become so much great compared to sovereign wealth. We have now 20 million millionaires and more than 2,000 billionaires. And the combined net worth of these people, individually owned, not corporations, individually owned, is $160 trillion. Think about that. And passively investing that in the stock market, alternate investment, it generates $16 trillion annually, which means it's compounding at a level that nobody can catch. So these individual wealth owners are bigger than kings and emperors in the past, bigger than sovereign nations today and their sovereign funds, for example, and they will be the future of capital. And what can we do to motivate them to invest in the world's future survival? Well-being in general is a very key debate going on. And it's going to create this massive discontent, so much of wealth on the one hand and so much poverty on the other hand. And the last one is a very key one. Since the World War II, we were able to put an architecture where the institutions like IMF, World Bank, United Nations, everybody was in agreement. You had the NATO alliance to combat communism. Today, the alliance partners and whatever allies we have are very uneasy. What is the future of their alliances, etc. So on the sidebar, I mentioned that the military expansion of China is creating a great opportunity for India to become a self-reliant strategic nation globally. This is not protectionism. This is not back to license Raj. This is not back to planned economy, not back to what Lenin advocated, which we agreed upon when we started the nation, called the commanding heights. Think about that commanding height theory. It has failed in Soviet Union. It failed in China, actually, it turns out to be, and China liberalized quite a lot. And it's a mechanism that does not seem to work as well, despite the ideology. What seems to work is a different model than the typical socialism or communism model. Next chart, please. So what we have to do is to figure out, if you want to be self-reliant, you need to know where you want to go. You have to control your own destiny. Otherwise, the destiny will control you. So I have done a very simple plot that we began as a journey as a nation, primarily isolating domestic-centric economy. All of the key industries cannot be owned by private sector. We do not trust capitalism, whether it's a steel industry, whether it's an insurance industry, whether it's aluminum industry. Just think about all of the state enterprises, and more recently, banks also we nationalized. It basically says, and then very low tech. Surprisingly, India has remained low tech much more, despite the technological advances that have taken place. So that is the old license Raj India. The new India, in many ways, a self-reliant India, has to be globally integrated because the world is so interdependent, if not in economic resources, definitely in terms of politics and military side. And we have to become high-tech in the process. To me, India's future is not with the low-tech technologies or activities. It is high-tech technology at the higher end, more like the space programs, more like, for example, Silicon Valley type, next generation of digital technologies, as opposed to mechanical or electromechanical technologies, smart technologies in some fashion, as they call them. This is because India has tremendous set of potential advantages. One of the largest consumer markets, as we shift consumption from unbranded products to branded products, and from a highly unorganized retailing to a very organized retailing, compressing the 9 or 11 steps between a producer and a consumer to 1 or 2 steps through, let's say, Flipkart in India, Amazon that has come in India, more of the market exchanges, electronics, and of course, Reliance Jio will become one of the largest retailers in the world, similar to Alibaba in China and similar to Amazon in India. That's a high-tech phenomenon. Low-tech can support that, but it's really a high-tech. So consumer demand is the biggest one. And Indian economy will move, just like the American economy and Chinese economy, 70 to 75% of its GDP will be given by the consumer sector, not by the industrial or the military or the government sector. Second major area, as the Prime Minister clearly has advocated, we all have been advocating, public infrastructure is way behind. How can we leapfrog as we did the PC revolution into cell phone revolution? Is it the next generation of public infrastructure, which is what I call smart infrastructure? Don't duplicate what people did 100 years ago, paving the highways the same way, for example, building the airports the same way as before, building the seaports. These all have to be high-tech. High-tech is the future, as Singapore shown in the seaport architecture, for example. So how can we become an intelligent nation, which is in public infrastructure can provide a lot of support? Defense is a major industry. A lot of upgrade is necessary. And in defense, you cannot depend on other nations. They can help you in terms of security alliance, but you have to be self-sufficient to have your own military capabilities. So privatization of the defense industry is inevitable and actually quite necessary. Global diaspora, one of the biggest advantages India has, that its globalization of its people worldwide is massive, but they're all doing very well. Every nation where Indians have settled have always felt like we are contributing to that nation. It's a net contributor ethnic group worldwide, and they're in very key positions, whether it's in the academic world, scientific world, political world, ministers in the British cabinet, ministers in the Canadian cabinet. There are several people of Indian origin, as it is true in many other countries. So to me, that global diaspora is a key advantage toward the self-reliant India as a vision, as an architecture. Digital talent, very key. In fact, this is the reason why all of the silicon companies are racing into India, because Indian workers will not be allowed to come worldwide because of political unrest, a lot of populism movement, and anti-immigration policy. So the work has to come to India. And in the process, you see Hyderabad growing as a city almost rivaling or will rival Bangalore, for example, as the IT capital, but it will be more than IT capital. Accounting services, legal services, R&D services, etc., etc. And we have finally positive self-image and self-confidence. I can do it. It's possible, which is very important, because when you have a license Raj thinking where there is no opportunity, there are nothing but obstacles, best thing you can do for your own growth is to go abroad. Because the local institutions and local policies and procedures are very hostile to you. They do not recognize that the purpose of a nation is to unlock your potential rather than plateau your potential. And this is a key change that has happened in India, especially since the 1991 reform. And equally important, the IT industry, which went global, export-oriented, tremendous respect for the Indian IT professionals. The image has changed from a country of roaming cows and snake charmers to a country of next generation of technology experts and very quality qualified talent. That talent needs to remain in India through a self-reliant India policy. Let's go to the next chart, please. So how do we build, next chart. So how do you become self-reliant nation? First one, of course, is make in India. Why should we import things? Not by mandate, but by giving incentives, why it makes sense to do value add in India. British actually outsourced India into India and to America, two key industries based upon David Ricardo, another economist, right after Adam Smith, who advocated on competitive advantage. Two industries came to India to do value add on raw materials. One was cotton and the other one was textile. Steel. So we go back to late 1800s almost, where we became one of the largest garment and textile industries in the world. And steel, we had a lot of steel mills we created all in the sort of the private sector. So British basically said, we don't need to do value add in Britain, like in Birmingham or Manchester or wherever the steel was there, but we can actually do value add and export more value added products. I think it's very doable. So both, but Make in India is not limited to manufacturing. Make in India should be both products and services. India has tremendous amount of service capabilities. How can we utilize that so that service industries can do things out of India than any other place? India has all the capability. It may be like a rough diamond that needs to be polished. It can be enabled by technology, but it is a rough diamond at least. Defense, space, cybersecurity, high-end R&D work, high-end technology work. And of course, it's becoming one of the largest markets for appliances, automobiles, garments, surprisingly diamonds. India is a very large consumer of diamonds, and we dominate the diamond industry worldwide. There is no second country that comes closest to India diamond industry. That looks like a mundane industry, but it's very sophisticated. And same thing has happened, the petrochemical industry or the energy industry. Reliance is now ranked number 2 in market valuation, right after Saudi Arabia, Aramco company, and above, surprisingly, ExxonMobil. If India can do petrochemicals so well, India can do diamonds on the other end so well, IT industry so very well, I think it's a question of willpower and imagination and a commitment, both by the industry, by the government, by the civil society, as well as the individuals, that I can do it. And I think it's very doable. However, in order to do that thing in India, one has to embrace global standards and not local standards, and lead global benchmarks and win global awards for domestic products and services that you make. Your domestic products are now worshipped, admired by the rest of the world. It happens in literature. Indian authors are winning all the awards, both the Booker Award and the Pulitzer Prizes, for example. It's very doable. But what is happening with a handful of people in every discipline, can we scale it up so that it becomes universal? Lot more so, and it's again doable. As I mentioned about diamonds, India Stack is a very good architecture. Aadhaar is another one, and space program. We do wonderfully well in space program at almost 1/10 the cost of the rest of the world is able to do. Develop globally admired products and brands. This is my strong point. If you look at the history of nations that became admired by others, especially nations from Asia, Japan used to be a laughing stock in the 50s when I was growing up. People thought cheap goods, just not comparable to British goods, German goods, American goods. But Japanese took a policy decision along with industry to absolutely invest in quality and become number 1 in many industries or number 2 in quality. The quality investment paid off. And Japan became most admired nation because of its products and brand names like Sony in the early days, Toyota on the other hand, Mitsubishi Group, Mitsui Group, Sumitomo. I can give you names after names, and they became global and worldwide. Same thing was followed by South Korea, Samsung, Hyundai in automobiles, as well as the LG Industries are all over the world. Even in the US market, LG Industries and Samsung are taking the appliances business away from General Electric of the world, for example, or other manufacturers. And of course, same thing is happening with China. Surprising to everybody, Chinese are able to produce their brands, which are becoming worldwide accepted. It's not just a cheap goods country, it is all goods country. Any quality you want, China is able to deliver. Become a second sourcing destination to the world. World, for whatever reason, right now with the COVID phenomenon or a problem, pandemic, world is distancing from China. World would like to de-risk because I find fascinating even mundane products like microwave ovens. 94% of all the production in the world is in China. It's a daily necessity. If I shut down the production or supply of microwave ovens, there is a revolt by the people. You can't live without microwave ovens. I'm just giving extreme example to show it is not the military, it is not the high-end product, but daily mundane products where people are saying, I depend too much on one nation, I need to diversify. And India is becoming a very good place to diversify right now. So what is happening with China is benefiting India, whether in an indirect way. So I think it's very important to take advantage. Let me tell you a story here slightly in a different way. After World War II, and the Allies won the battle against Germans, that included, of course, France, England, and America. America being big. All of them had a huge pent-up demand. The soldiers came home from families, they wanted to buy appliances, they wanted to buy houses, and there was not enough talent, labor to do the work. So they offered this to India because the British system had already put steel and textiles in India. Our accounting system, the legal system, the procedures that we had, basically British-oriented architecture because of the British Empire in the old days. Unfortunately, at that time, we were so anti-colonial. At that time, we had the worry that if you allow Western world, they will take over our resources rather than protect us or unlock our potential. And we decided against. We would have been, if we had accepted the job of outsourcing manufacturing by these nations to make it in India, we would be the largest manufacturing capital in the world. There would be no China, of course. There'll be no Japan, for example, or no South Korea. That was a mistake made, probably right for the right reasons at that time, but we can learn from that. If there is an opportunity now happening again, how quickly and how urgently we move rather than have debates and dissensions all the time. One can articulate, but I think as a nation, we have to be all together towards saying we have a common view, which is the rise of India and the well-being of the world that India can serve properly, not just domestically. Next comment, next page, please. Page number, point number 5, yeah. Become a global hub for professional and scientific talent. As I mentioned, Make in India strategy will work much faster, much better in services industry. Because we have that pool of scientific talent and professional talent, larger than anybody. China is the other one, but people don't want to go to China, which gives a de facto opportunity for India. R&D work is shifting in India, all the way to very high complicated R&D, not just medical things, but beyond medical. Digital services are dominant, IT industry, accounting, publishing. India is the de facto publishing capital of the world. All the back office work is done by Indian talented people because we know how to do scientific work, we know how to do medical, etc., understanding the proper. All the books are published, journals are published in India more and more. Invest in public infrastructure, just like the Prime Minister mentioned. Huge, huge need. And this cannot be sustained by the government alone. You have to have a public-private partnerships, which means basically it is a privatized autonomous operation. Government contributes the land, other resources, private sector contributes the capital. There's an enormous capital waiting out there for investment in public infrastructure all over the world, but definitely it looks like in India. Seaports, we need more seaports than ever before for domestic shipment, not for foreign. We need a lot more airports, at least 20 more airports in the next 4 or 5 years, because second tiers is where the resources are, agricultural, industrial, that's where the factories are. And today, more and more cargo is going by air cargo, not just by railway or just by, in fact, sea. We have to become a multi-mode transport system in place, very important. Energy is another sector, especially alternate energy. A lot of things are written by everybody. Roads, another big opportunity, but smart roads. Roads of tomorrow, 21st century, not the roads that we built for the 20th century, for example. Warehouses, huge, huge need for warehouses, and ultimately smart infrastructure. Every infrastructure has to have built-in intelligence, or IoT as we call it, Internet of Things. Very important. You have the autonomous cars all over the world. It is possible. Modernize agriculture, my big, big recommendation. Our agriculture is thousands of years old. It is unable to leverage its energy coming from humans or cattle. We are the largest cotton producer in the world. We surpassed America. We are a major sugarcane producer and a consumer country. Our dairy milk and consumption is the largest in the world. While Americans are not drinking as much milk, we continue because of our younger population and a part of a culture for our nutrition and other benefits. Dairy can be easily, if Amul can become a great brand name, admired all over India. We can do through cooperatives about 10 Amuls very quickly by region. There is no need for an outside help even. It can be done automatically. We know how to do it in our constrained circumstances. Amul is fascinating because the ownership is by the farmer, and surprisingly, farmers have only 2.5 or 3 cattle per farmer, very primitive. They do public grazing, but all of them are very wealthy because Amul brand is a multi-billion brand. Similarly, Baba Ramdev's, Patanjali, out of nowhere in Ayurvedic becomes a large corporation, billions of dollars in revenue or crores of revenues, and it can export products. If Patanjali can do things in India or out of India, there are many more possibilities. In fact, I find very fascinating that India is a country where every street corner has a recipe. There is one vendor who has a recipe. They come and make it every day. People line up in an hour or so. The things are gone, whether it's a mithai or it's a snack product or whether it's Italy in South India, whatever it is. Each one of them is capable of being branded, scaled up, packaged, marketed. So it goes beyond the local market to a regional market or eventually global market. I'm a very strong advocate that agriculture needs to reform, go to modern farming as fast as possible. Large-scale farms with more mechanization is essential for the farming industry to survive, not just thrive. Second major recommendation to really realize this self-reliant nation is to learn from the history of Germany, America, and South Korea. All of them basically mandated vocational technical training. Germany became a very large nation in the Industrial Revolution by certifying every job. If you want to do sanitation work, you have to be certified. You have to get educated how to do it right. What matters more is know how, not know why. And know how comes by doing it. Think about the IT industry evolution. It really began with NIIT and Aptech. Those guys trained people to do coding work. Y2K. So out of nowhere, the Indian talent now is 150 to almost $200 billion industry and still growing very well. So we need more the NIIT approach by private sector. It's very possible to do it. Aptech, same thing. These are the two most admired companies, surprisingly, in China. Chinese realized the importance of NIIT and Aptech building the IT infrastructure through vocational training. Ease of doing business, very important, and I know the government has talked about this one. India still is a very difficult country to do business. Unfortunately, again, it's a comparative advantage. Other countries have already out of necessity or whatever have reformed themselves, and they're moving faster and faster in reforming to make it much easier to do business. India still has lots of legacy procedures, policies, bureaucracies, whatever it is. How do you make it easy? So both for foreign and domestic investment, there's a plenty of money that can be invested by Indian corporations in India rather than invest abroad. Speedy decisions. By the way, two things we have to make sure stay in India, our people and our capital, rather than go abroad for looking better returns. And it is the role of the government and the financial institutions to make sure that capital made in India stays in India in a positive way. They want to stay in India and the people stay in India. Speedy decisions. And today with technology, it can be done. Online filings. I know the External Affairs Ministry has done a fantastic job about the visa and all that work. Just everything is online now, which is important. Good bedside manners. This is where I think the bureaucrats have to learn that they have to be citizen-centric. They are there to serve the citizens rather than be the bosses over the citizens. You can still feel it. They think that they are in charge and they will slow you down by bureaucracy, arguing this rule, that rule. There's no good bedside manners. How do we create good bedside manners besides the expertise in the bureaucracy they handle? Very important one. And I think also the use of AI technology is there pretty much, and blockchain will be very important in ease of doing business, surprisingly. Next chart, please. So here is my view about the self-reliance. Self-reliance is the ability, just in general, not the self-reliant nation, but this more at the individual level, where the theory began, surprisingly, by Waldo Emerson, who coined the phrase self-reliance. It was true in the historical Indian, definitely, wisdom. We have so much of this thing which is regenerated back again or reproduced in the Western way. Self-reliance is the ability and willingness to do things and make decisions by yourself. It is not a dependence theory, not even as much an interdependence, but it is independent. It requires taking responsibility and accountability. If you want to be self-reliant, if you want to be owner of your own destiny, just like owner of a business, you have to make sure that you are held accountable for the consequences or the outcomes you create. Keeping informed about the environment you are in, very important part is that aware of surroundings. Without, you cannot be self-reliant. You can be isolating yourself. Knowing your direction and the steps required to reach your goal, which means you have a strategy in place how to become self-reliant as an individual or as a nation. And you are able to make autonomous decisions. You have the courage and the confidence to make decisions independent of outside influences. As we see the stories, the President of America in White House is the decision maker, bunch of advisors, but ultimately he or she has to make a decision and face the consequences. Next slide, please. The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be. This was the Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was sort of the American thinker, let's say in the late 1800s. You cannot help people permanently by doing for them what they could and should do for themselves. Abraham Lincoln definitely articulated that you cannot have the welfare system all the time. People have to learn how to do, or what you call, I can give you the fish, or I can teach you how to do the fishing. Typical things that we say. Third one is very important message for young people. Ask not what the country can do for you, but ask what you can do for the country. We need to think the same way about ask not what your parents can do for you, but what you can do for your parents. I worry quite a lot. The next generation seems to have no sense of social obligation that I need to take care of parents. Under the COVID situation, the lockdown, parents are more active, surprisingly, if they're living independently. They're lonely. And children have no time to call them. They're so busy in their career, etc. It's painful to watch. I see that in America, and I can see that in India. So this is a very important message that it is the next generation who will benefit from self-reliant India. Benefits will come over time, and you are the beneficiary, which means you have an obligation to give back to the society. You cannot wait till you retire to give back. Giving back begins as soon as you get it, or paying forward as it is called. Your parents have invested enormously in you. You are a small number of very elite people, and you have to therefore say how grateful I am that society, my parents, government is investing in me. How can I give it back to the society, the parents, the community, etc. And now, fortunately, you don't have to go outside the world, into the world, as I have done, for example, because the world will come to India. I'm absolutely true. Just like the opportunity in the 50s, which we missed, This is a great opportunity where the world will come to India. India has become so strategic in the geopolitics of the world. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. It might be a little longer than I thought. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your address. Sir, you have very effectively highlighted the importance of self-reliant and how a self-reliant country can face pandemic and sustain in the long run. In the changing world order, there is a need to become self-reliant as a domestic to international factors are compelling to become a self-reliant country. Sir, you have clearly mentioned that there is a need to repositioning of self-reliant India, mainly in high-tech and globally integrated economy. Sir, you have shown a clear-cut path way to become self-reliant India by focusing on two areas, making in India, embracing global standard, developing globally admired products or brands, outsourcing the world, just like China, investment in public infrastructure, modernize the agriculture, improving position of India in ease of doing business, etc. What should be the vision of the youth at this time? For this, the youth, this is the time to take responsibility and accountability, become updated and autonomous decision maker. I do hope that today's youth will take inspiration from your address, sir. This is also the fact that India is demographically having a dividend and opportunities offered to us in this pandemic will be exploited by the youth and they will contribute in building self-reliant India. Sir, already chat box is full of message of admiration, appreciation. All the participants are very thankful to you as conveyed by their messages. Now, sir, participants have some queries. With your permission, I'm taking
Sure.
these queries one by one.
Sure.
Sir, first question is, it is by Dr. Rasmi Ahuja. How do you see international trade would emerge after COVID-19, especially when most of the economies, including India, are looking to be self-reliant?
I think there will be multiple vaccines that will come about. People are all waiting. In fact, this morning, just before the webinar, Russia already announced that they have a mass-produced commercial vaccine. People are doubting Western world, which we have already doubted when they came out with Sputnik, for example, in the space race in the 50s. And in fact, they've actually called the name Sputnik 5 or something to make that linkage that Russia is very capable. Rest of the world always has underestimated capability of Russia. Russia has a brilliant mathematicians historically, brilliant psychologists. They have been very good in technology. They're good in science, math, technology, whatever we call them. And we always underestimate it. And I think this is a race now to say in the era of COVID or coronavirus, who leads the way? So there'll be about multiple initiatives. There'll be a new industry created in the vaccine area, and vaccine will be polio days and the other days in the past, because it's so there'll be a race by the Americans, a race by the British, which is the Oxford University experiments going on. China is doing its own. So there'll be a globalized industry that'll come about. And like all startup industries, there'll be shakeout mergers. Some will lose. It's a marathon race. And ultimately, based upon my old theory about the rule of three in every industry, ultimately there may be 3 vaccines that survives. each one probably having a regional monopoly of some sort, like European Union blesses one vaccine, we America bless another vaccine, etc., rather than one common vaccine, no? As it is true in many medical fields even right now.
One more question: how can we overcome unemployment problems in the COVID era?
Yeah, the problem with unemployment is very different. In India, there is employment, but not formal employment. I was very surprised when I looked at statistics that more than 90% of the people who are working on a contractual basis. Contract labor is very high. People who come to work at your home, they're contract laborers. People who drive your cars, they're contract laborers. People who work in manufacturing factories, each factory is a contract manufacturer for a larger company. The whole supply chain in India is contract work. And that's because of the old policies about labor laws. We have the British policy of what is called the job steward, which means each factory of so many people can be unionized or should be unionized. Now, Japan has a similar policy, but Japanese have overcome. America rejected that policy when it became an industrial nation to create what is called collective bargaining, which means having all of the workers pulled together as a single union that counterbalances the power of the industry as a single, multiple companies together, as opposed to factory by factory. I think we need to, first thing one can do in employment is that technology has never substituted humans. This is a wrong theory. Actually, it improves the humans to the next level. The worst job you can have is an agricultural labor. Hardest job, 7 days a week. And there's no savings at the end of the day. When we industrialized, manufacturing job was at least better than agricultural job. So you migrate the nation toward more manufacturing and shift the labor from one type to the other type. Manufacturing therefore became better. Compared to manufacturing, services industries have been better, and knowledge economy ultimately, which is why that high tech is very important to lift the employment. I will tell you a couple of things around here, and now it's taking a longer time. Today's automobile, even in India, is basically a computer. Today's mechanic, he still knows how to take oil and change the lubrication on the mechanical cars, like the old Ambassador or the Fiat. Today's mechanic, to run the automobile repair, has to have computer literacy. The old mechanical tools are not enough, you see? So we are keeping employees way behind compared to the products we produce. If you produce smart products or advanced products, how can you increase the labor itself? Smart and must. And this is where the industry has to invest. I think government rollout is not enough. Government can pass the laws like certification. You are not allowed to hire unless the person is certified, as I mentioned about Germany, South Korea. In 35 years, South Korea, from a feudal backward society, became one of the best middle income or higher income society by mandating professional technical education system. 35 years. So it can be done. It cannot be done in a year, but to me, and it is happening with newer industries. If you go to IT services industry, it's very modern. If you go to petrochemical industry now, it's very modern. It's the legacy industries that we have where capital is installed and the cost of capital is so high. How do we modernize our factories? Because if we modernize our factories, you have to modernize your employees by definition. So it's a capital catch-22. So it is absolutely essential for the society as a whole to invest not just subsistence labor continuing, but labor increasing. Let me give you an example. I'm sorry to belabor the point. You take a software engineer, 10 plus 2 plus 3, goes to Bangalore as an employee, Infosys, Whirlpool, Wipro, whatever they are, earns about 60,000 a month salary, out of which he pays almost 20,000 as a paying guest living in somebody's house. His living cost is extra. At the end of the month, he has no cash flow because he's modern, contemporary. He cannot live without certain things. a girlfriend, significant, they go out night clubbing, etc. Has to have a car, something. Compared to the crane operator in Kutch Mundra port, he earns 80,000 rupees a month. Married, he has no rent to pay, lives with his parents. Married wife actually is a homemaker, taking care of the children and the aging parents. He has so much of discretionary income today in India. So what does he do with his income? First thing is buy a good motorcycle, both as a vehicle to go to work, but also as a family vehicle. Second thing, he says, maybe I will aspire to buy an automobile, just functional, small Maruti or nano car, right? Third, better clothing for my children and for my wife. Jewelry. In India, I don't know whether you know, but largest amount of gold is not with the government, it is with the individual and mostly low income people. It is now with the new price of the gold, it probably is about $2 trillion of wealth converted cash into jewelry, not into bank accounts. America had a similar one worldwide, but America discouraged that and went into saying, put money in a bank, you can invest it, it grows. Gold is a worthless commodity, which is proven wrong. I never bought the argument. So actually they have a deep wealth, but nobody is able to unlock that, you know. So comparing to the crane operator and the software engineer, I find life is much easier over there. You can do quite a lot more. That is the backbone of labor in India. Vocational, technical, we will need modern plumbers as we put modern, toilets, for example, we'll need modern electricity, electricians, everything is high tech that we buy in the marketplace, but the employer, the employee or the person who does the work is low tech. High tech is very important. Sorry to belabor the point.
Sir, last question. Very recently, Trump administration is talking about self-reliant in medicine. And you know, every third tablet in America, that is from India. Yes. So America is also talking about self-reliant in medicine. India is talking about self-reliant in many areas. How do you see it? Because we are a great exporter of medicines worldwide.
Primarily, very simple. If you want to stay in the industry as a pharma company in India, rather than export, you must invest in America. And you must invest in India, period. Most of the times, trade is shifting to investment if the nation requires that you make it there, or if the investment market is big enough to rather than export, you can invest there. It's a typical pattern. So I do expect if the bilateral relationship grows very much, which is inevitable, it looks like India and America will become key partners because of the rise of China as a more militant nation or a military approach. Like recently, everybody's worrying. Given that alignment, it is very likely that a lot of Indian companies will become truly multinational and invest, like IT has already done that thing, invest in America. And similarly, Americans can invest in India.
Very right, sir. So we have to become a strategic partner. So then we can compete with other countries.
Absolutely. Which is why globally integrated is a very key element. You cannot remain isolated nation, let's say like North Korea or Myanmar, Burma. It's impossible to live. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, for making the session lively, interactive, and healthy. Your session will be ever remembered. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting.
Sir, now I request Professor Ashwini Bhalla for a minute, please, to say 2 words.
Thank you, Dr. Saab, for giving me an opportunity after listening to the great personality. Actually, Professor Jagdish has unfolded many things for India to become a self-reliant. And even our new education policy speaks a lot about whatever Professor Jagdish has said to us. And it was a really very wonderful lecture. And I congratulate Dr. Tajinder Sharma, Dr. Narendra Ji, Dr. Narwal, and all the people, Dr. Professor Subhash and his team, that they have arranged to listen Professor Jagdish on this occasion. So he has nicely said that when you have to become a globally accepted, you have to become a self-reliant, and you have to unlock the various potential of your resources. We have a lot of resources in India, but still we are not in a position to unfold and unlock the resources which we can use, and we have the potential also. He has rightly said that you must have the ability to change. We have the ability to change, but till now, right from our independence to till now, we were not having that much willingness to change. So when the combination of ability to change and willingness to change with the top leadership, with the motivation of top leadership will come, definitely it is going to be a wonder for our economy as a whole, and we will, it is for the youth, a lesson for the youth also. As far as Professor Jagdish has said that now I have been observing in Punjab also, same stories in Haryana also, lot of people are going abroad and willing to go abroad and settle abroad and leaving their properties, selling their properties in Punjab also, and lots of youth are going from here because to get the education and try to settle there, and we are losing a lot of revenue regarding this, and even our capital we are losing. Not only capital in the financial terms, but in the terms of our human resources we are losing, and they are not willing to come back. So definitely, if we have to make self-reliant India, we have to think about this also. We have not to protect our capital, but to protect our people also. So time will come that the people from all over the world will come to India, will settle in India, and will try to get the right kind of education here. The people will not go out. So I hope the blessings which Professor Jagdish Sheth has given to us in terms of his lecture are going to be very useful for our youth, and I congratulate to him, and I extend my thanks from Punjab Commerce and Management Association also, that all our listeners, because it has been shared on all the platforms of the PCMA also, his lecture is watched, I think, more than 5,000 people in the state of Punjab and Haryana. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for giving your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Aswani Bhallaji, for sharing your rich experience with all the participants. Now, the person who is a source of inspiration for organizing such academic events throughout the university is Professor Manjula Chaudhary, Dean Academic Affairs, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra. She is very hard worker, and we used to say her the Iron Lady of the university. She is very decisive and leading all the academic events. She is torch bearer for us. Now I invite Professor Manjula Chaudhary for presidential remarks. Madam Manjula Chaudhary.
A very good evening to everyone. Professor Sheth, it has been an absolute delight to listen to you. I cannot express it in words. And the positive tone with which you gave the whole narration will certainly motivate all of us to look at the whole thing of self-reliant India. Like, this is doable and this is possible. And all the listeners, most of them are from commerce and management. I'm sure that they will pass the message to their students. So this is how your lecture is going to multiply. I have read about your books, I have read your theories, but this is the first time I have listened to you. And I'm immensely thankful to you for this lecture. I thank Professor Tejinder Sharma and his team and his associates for organizing such a wonderful lecture. He has been very, very upbeat since the beginning when he contacted you. And his team has been with him. I also congratulate the Dean of the Faculty of Commerce and Management, Professor Narinder Singh, who has been supporting of this initiative. And I congratulate all the participants who have attended this lecture. Like they will carry forward a good image and good memory of this self-reliant India. Like, how is it possible and what can be done? Some of your thoughts are very, very notable. You talked about unlocking the potential. You talked about changing world order. You talked about opening of the countries like interconnected world, but somehow we feel that these days, because of some reasons, every country has started going for protectionism. So a movement has started in the reverse direction. At this point of time, whether it is self-reliant India, it's not because the country wants to be self-reliant, it's because they want to produce everything within their own country, because the trust, there is a lot of trust deficit among the different countries at the global level. So countries are withdrawing from these old alliances. So what we see is that old equilibrium is falling apart and new equilibrium is yet to be established. It's a very, very fluid stage, and it's a challenge for most of the nation what they are going to do about it. Particularly for India, it is very, very challenging, where we do not have a choice like go for self-reliant India and give employment to our youth. I mean, it's a compulsion. 65% of our population is considered to be young, which is still looking forward to education for the career. So we have to work on both the fronts. On the one hand for the education, on the other hand for employment, providing them employment opportunities. Though you might be knowing, but I will quote it here. The government has recently announced its new education policy, which has made structural changes in the way education has been imparted in India. So now we will not have separate verticals of like intellectual education on one hand, professional on another, and then vocational on third. We are mixing everything together. So everyone who comes into educational institutions, they have to learn some vocational, and then they have the multiple entry and exit options. So if somebody wants to go to the job market, they can go, and then whenever they feel like they want to come back, they can come back. Till now, it has been a very, very rigid structure. I hope when this new implementation, this new education policy is implemented, like government has given a 15-year window for this. I hope like things are going to be much, much better. As far as our youth are concerned, they are very aspirational. This we can see the way they perform whenever they go to the foreign shores. It is within the India, as you very rightly said, that they have to be provided the right type of opportunities and right type of nurturing environment. Somewhere that is missing. But some of the recent initiative, like we like to say from our university, and this is being done in most of the educational institutions. Now the government has started focusing on innovation, incubation, and entrepreneurship within the university campuses, something which was either earlier not thought of, or it was restricted to only few premium institutes. So we have come up with this one center, which primarily focuses on science and technology. So naturally, this latest technology is taken care of. And we are working on this IoT, ML, as well as artificial intelligence. And a large number of training programs are being provided. Apart from that, we have this funding options also if somebody comes up with an idea. So we were about to start the facility for startups in our university. Unfortunately, this COVID-19 happened. I hope in the next few months, when the things get better, we will be able to rework on it and give something which is tangible. But I'm sure listening to you and your ideas has definitely personally benefited me. Then I can recalibrate these incubation centers or entrepreneurship centers on the lines that you have suggested. Thank you very much again, and all the best to all the participants and all the organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, Professor Narwal, please unmute yourself. Hello.
Hello.
Ah, yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you, madam, for your guidance and encouragement for organizing such academic events. Now, before closing today's event, it's the duty of the host to acknowledge the presence of participants, speakers, panelists, and their contribution to make this event a success. For formal vote of thanks, I invite Professor Neelam Danda, Department of Commerce, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra. Over to Madam Neelam Danda.
Good evening, everybody. Am I audible to you?
Yes,
Hello.
madam. Yes, madam, you're audible.
I, Neelam Danda, Professor, Department of Commerce, am delighted to present a vote of thanks on behalf of Kurukshetra University, Department of Commerce, and on my own behalf. I am thankful to Professor Jagdish Sheth, Emory University, USA, for accepting our proposal and joining us as resource person for the first webinar organized by Department of Commerce. We are delighted to listen to you and hope your great ideas will help India to become a self-reliant nation. We are extremely thankful for sparing your time for the department and the participants. Thank you, sir. I'm thankful to University Administration for approving the proposal for hosting this webinar. I am thankful to Professor Manjula Chaudhary, Dean Academic Affairs, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra, who has always been a source of motivation, inspiration, and guidance for every kind of academic and administrative assignments. I am thankful to Professor Narendra Singh, Dean, Faculty of Commerce and Management, for providing guidance, support, and motivation for every academic as well as administrative activities. I am thankful to the representatives of management associations from our neighboring states. Dr. Jayanth, Dr. Sanjeev Sharma, and Dr. Ashwani Bhalla, who have joined us and participated in this webinar to provide us guidance, support, as well as the participation strength. I am thankful to Professor Tejinder Sharma for taking. This is the first webinar with an eminent speaker who has presented the policy as well as strategic aspects for making India as a self-reliant nation. I'm thankful to Dr. Sanjeev Sharma for providing technical support for conducting this webinar. I'm thankful to my fellow colleagues for their collaborating efforts as well as event. Finally, I am thankful to the participants who have joined this event with great enthusiasm, and they'll be good messengers for the guidance provided by our eminent speaker to our students and society at large. Finally, I am thankful to media and print and electronic media for providing adequate coverage of the event and circulating the message to the society. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, one and all, again present here during this webinar. Now, I just want to give one information to all the participants that all of you are required to fill the feedback form to get the e-certificate. The e-certificate will be issued to those who will fill the feedback form. No other request will be entertained in this regard. Thank you.
I would also like to put on record thanks to Jayanth Shah ji for making this event possible for us. I am extremely thankful to you, sir. Overwhelmed to have a friend like you, sir. And I look forward to having you in the campus sometimes. And of course, yes, sir, we want to have Jagdish sir also in our campus sometimes. And I'm also thankful to the very patient hard work done by Harish Rawat and Pooja Malhotra also, who for making this event successful. They have really burnt a lot of midnight oil and done a lot of background work for making this event possible. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Tejinder. Always a pleasure to have a friend like you. And whatever I can do for you, I am always there. So you can connect with me. Now we are already connected. So whatever is required, definitely we will come along.
Sure, sir. It's a great pleasure, sir, to be with you, sir. And we'll continue our communication. Right?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.